Hey guys, James here again. This is going to be the Making Caesar Better, Part 3 for War for the Planet of the Apes. Now, if you guys haven't been keeping up, look at the last two posts. They're this video. Like, just two. There's Rise, there's Dawn, then this is War. But, yeah. Now, if you guys hear noise in the background, my house, thin walls, small, yeah. But then also, if you guys look at the screen, things different. I have my phone tilted sideways, so it's charging, so that might alter how this screen looks for a little bit. But yeah, so we fast forward 2 years after Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Colonel made his way to San Francisco, but Caesar's tribe and the humans are much more progressive, as humans that were in San Francisco originally, in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Caesar made a pact with them, kind of. And plus, they actually have Will now, who moved in with them after, well, the Colonel tried to raid his house after he first tried to raid the humans, or the colony, which he kind of half succeeded, half failed. When it came to Will, Caesar kind of has him protected, because Dreyfus found him. So, Chimps found him, and Chimps with LMGs outnumber humans who were not ready for a fight. So, yeah. Or outarm, but yeah. And Will can actually function a bit better as his leg is mostly healed and he can speak in much more clear sentences. His speech is still kind of iffy though, but he can speak in longer form sentences. But yeah. And the Colonel and their donkeys, we're going to go to that when they find Caesar's secret base, the outpost. Caesar was able to give an estimate of those who traded him after Koba's death, and how many were likely with the Colonel or who had just abandoned them. Caesar basically plotted out calculations for every little aspect of this war. Like, best way to put it is like, he has a plan. If you have a counter to that plan, he has a counter to your counter. He's a counter to that counter should you discover it. He's basically plotted out every aspect for this war. He's just been holding off to try to spare as many lives as possible, which he's been able to do. So yeah. So when the base is attacked by the Colonel squad, well, the group first had launched a grenade launcher, but when they didn't see any corpses, their donkeys began sniffing around the air. But as soon as they began sniffing, suddenly all their donkeys in the trees, donkeys being the name for the apes that work for the humans, the donkeys began falling out of the trees, with apes on top of them, with spears in the donkeys' necks. And that actually shocked the humans, and when they got their guns up, suddenly a lot of humans are yanked into pitfalls. But instead of there actually being like spikes, there's 3 or 4 gorillas in each pit, and not good for the humans, and as these gorillas are merciless, they're not like humans are torn apart, quite literally torn apart. So yeah. Caesar does still take some and then sends them back to Colonel as like a gesture of goodwill, but also send a message. And not a single chimp life was taken, and maybe like a few gorillas were grazed with bullets from scared humans, but yeah. Now, Red is still held captive by Winter, but then Red, quote-unquote, escapes after hitting Winter in the face. And the chimps live in trees, humans live in caves, and a few actually live in harmony. Will, Malcolm, Alexander, Ellie, all being the 4 that mostly live among the apes 24/7. As Alexander, he lives with Maurice, who has a few no-name kids. And then we have Malcolm and Ellie, who actually live with Rocket and his wife and his son Ash. Then Will lives with Caesar, Cornelius, and Blue Eyes. So yeah. Now, Ash, Blue Eyes, Alexander, and Malcolm, they returned after finding an oasis while they were exploring. And Malcolm estimated it's likely so they're deep in California still, I think, in this more snowy region of it, or a colder region of it. Hold on, actually, real quick, I'll make sure I get this right. There's no solidified location where it is, but it was in a desert, so yeah. But the night after the return of Alexander, Malcolm, Blue Eyes, and Ash, the Colonel's militia found the ape-human home, or just colony. But Caesar was expecting this, as before he planned for every aspect of this movie. Well, not all of it, but most of it was planned out. Like he had plans in place so they find his house. He shouldn't expect their entry point, but even then, he could still calculate how to counter it. Almost immediately, actually. But almost at all times, apes and humans were on night watch. Mostly gorillas were on there. A few of them had LMGs or turrets meant to be mounted on helicopters. And humans mostly were armed with sniper rifles or regular assault rifles. But when the Colonel's helicopters enter airspace, or not probably not helicopters, but there's people setting up maybe like not helicopters, but they were able to find somewhere to rappel down to. Well, gorillas and humans spotted them immediately, began opening fire, just silently, like 1 or 2 shots, mainly mostly humans, but it killed most of the colonel's men who were above ground, and the ones who got underneath quickly, well, Caesar had heard the gunshots and let out one really loud, just ooh, and immediately it echoed throughout the entire cave, and a few other apes chanted it back, signaling out through the entire colony that there's an invasion. Now, militia soldiers wandered around, ready to kill apes and humans. Most apes were already ready for combat, and they were just hiding. Now, one soldier would go for Caesar's quarters, but when he walked in, suddenly on the ceiling, Blez would drop down on the man's neck and immediately just yank it out of him. And Blez would have a stone sword and began slashing at all the humans. Or, well, he didn't yank the man's throat out, but he choked him out and kind of just threw him by his neck, which the man probably isn't dead, but very bad whiplash. So yeah. But Blez had a stone sword began slashing at the humans, knocking a lot of them into walls and down. Until he saw the colonel's rope and noticed that there was no one going up or down it, so immediately Haitian would grab his mother and Cornelius and rappel down to the very bottom of the waterfall and hide them both behind some this rock. So, yeah. And then, what else? Pause. No chimps were actually killed, but a few were grazed and shot at, but from being shot at. The colonel escaped without taking a single life, which did actually annoy him severely. But Caesar, well, he just let the colonel know that Caesar planned this out, or he could actually make a plan on a whim that allowed him to survive. The colonel immediately knows, even if they're apes, he's only dealing with one of the greater strategic minds he's ever faced on the battlefield. So yeah. And eventually, everyone is making their way to the oasis, led by Alexander and a few no-name apes that went with them originally as protection if 2 humans and 2 apes weren't enough. Now, Caesar, Rocket, Maurice, Buck, Luca, Blue Eyes, Ash, Malcolm, and Will, they're the ones who are making the journey to kill the colonel. Those are the 10 who are doing it. Because everyone else can go on and do their thing, called Alexander's leading everyone else to the oasis. So, yeah. They're not doing this for actually vengeance or anything. They're doing it because Caesar knows he won't stop coming after them, and he even knows now, from the man going to his bedroom, he's aiming for him and his family, which Caesar cannot forgive. So, and Blue Eyes is kind of doing this because he felt he originally was told to go and lead them to the oasis with Alexander, but immediately Blue Eyes says, no, I need to do this because, well, my family was almost endangered, and he doesn't feel like he did enough to save them. But kind of for his own ego, he's going with his father. So yeah. Now, while riding on horseback into snowy terrain, they find a cabin, and Caesar would sniff the air, as did the other apes. And Caesar points out he can smell 2 humans and firewood. He says his nose isn't too great because of the firewood, though. Bless me taps his father's shoulder, and he ends up pointing to his own pistol that's on a table. And he sniffs the air, saying, recently fired, but at bottles. And they all think for a bit until Malcolm mentions, in our colony, well, it's hard to come by inexperienced soldiers unless they're children, which the second human might be a child. The first one might be a parent. So once they hear a child, the possibility of a child at least, immediately Blue Eyes and all the apes kind of agree that they should not be the one to go confront the human. So immediately, Caesar hands Blue Eyes a rifle, telling him, "Don't shoot, but use a scope to look down on Will and Malcolm going to talk to them." But he doesn't call Will. He says go use a rifle, just watch your grandfather and Malcolm go talk. So yeah, so he refers to Will as father and grandfather. So yeah. But Will ends up hopping off his horse, and he has a small cane, mainly just because he does have a small limp, but it's not really too noticeable, but he still does have one. So him and Malcolm use the cane, plus Will's actually a lot older now, but yeah. They get to the house, and they end up talking with the man, Nova's father. As they talked, Nan mentioned how he had run away from the militia, as Will made a lie, saying, "Oh yeah, we're kind of just travelers, because where we used to be was overrun by apes." So yeah. But the man mentions he ran away because his daughter caught the damn flu. He says, they would have killed her. She's a 12-year-old girl. They still would have killed her. They wanted to. But Will said, "I had it. It's rough." The man was confused and looked at Will, saying, "Had? You obviously don't even speak." Will held up a vial that had a small label on it that said, "Cure." Immediately the man was shocked, and Will says, "Do you want to try it?" The man immediately nodded, pulling Nova, who doesn't have an official name yet, over to him, and then Will injects Nova with the cure. And he says, "Give her a few days, and only make her try to coax out one word out of her. Don't try to assume she'll immediately know how to speak." And the father nods. Eventually, they go outside, and Caesar was waiting on his horse, but no man drew a gun. Will kind of told him the truth after slowly using his cane to make the man aim downward. So yeah. So as they talk eventually, I'm gonna give the father a name because I'm in trouble when you say it. Nova. I should have wrote this down. Apollo. Yeah, Apollo. Nova's off of a car off Chevrolet, and Chevrolet has a car that's like something Apollo. So, yeah. Blue Eyes comes down from the tree, and Apollo would lead them to the base because he's from the militia. He knows where they are, so he's able to bring them to the military base or camp. So they get to the camp, and he's able to sniff around and say one, maybe two donkeys, but only one matters, which confuses everyone until they all sniff the air. The apes do, and in unison they all kind of just mumble, "Winter." So Apollo looked at the apes, saying, "I can go in alone. I have my uniform on right now. They won't really check me. Usually the camps are undermined. One extra guy, they won't really notice that because it'll just be more help and they won't care." They nod, and then immediately, he actually asks, "Can like one of you go in with me though? Because if one of the donkeys know that I'm not one of them, because if they're good a sense of smell as you do, they'll know I'm not one of the registered soldiers." Ash immediately hops off his horse and nods, as Luca would end up climbing up a tree and ready to jump down should he be needed. So yeah. Eventually Apollo finds Winter, and as like Apollo's looking around, he mentioned like he looks at Winter using very minimal sign language he was taught on the horse ride over, and just says, "Where border need go." Winter would just scoff before writing on a piece of paper, saying, "I can barely understand your signs, just talk." And he tried to finish writing, only for him to be tackled and put in a chokehold. And then as he's being choked out, Ash would growl in his ear, saying, "Tell me where the border is, or I'll rip your fucking jaw from your head." Winter would immediately be trying to panic and let out low grunts trying to save his own ass. But eventually he would snitch after Apollo put a rifle tip in his mouth. So, yeah. But Apollo would sneak into a camp, being able to grab papers that Winter told him had the directions and all the blueprints to it. And eventually, on the way, Apollo kind of was able to take them. Was like, "Oh, I'm transferring up there for the And immediately he used someone with the sword until the soldier says, "Oh yeah, the incoming fight, we know. Just take the papers, read it, put them back, go." Apollo would nod, the soldier would turn around, only to hit him over the head full horse with a baton, take all the paper he can, and drag the man into some shrub, into like just some random just foliage. So yeah. As well as Apollo's leaving the camp, taking off from the uniform, he puts his head in the tent of Winter and Ash. As they were kind of arguing, I put T-I-N-T instead of T-E-N-T. Tent of Ash and Winter. And all you see is Winter slumped over with his actual jaw through his skull. Ash kind of flinches a little bit till he just kind of taps the tree that Luke was on. Luke would jump down and he pulls Winter in some foliage as well. So yeah. They left and go to the general make their way to the general location. Not really getting there yet, but they're on their way. But they eventually stop to climb the tower to overlook the camp, and they're still getting robbed by Bad Ape. I'm gonna start calling him B.A. because Bad Ape was troubling to write. But as soon as Bad Ape being trying to rob someone, due to Maurice being more on guard because Nova's with her father, Maurice knew Bad Ape was there, immediately yanking him up by the top of his head. And Maurice was almost like he was going to say, humans should back off until, or Bad Ape, or humans should leave us alone until B.A. was coming off saying, "No, me Ape, me Bad Ape." Buck growled in confusion and just said, "Is that your name, or are you insulting us? Or are you punishing yourself? There's so many ways I could go." Buck was just tapping his head a little confused until Bad Ape kind of shrugged, saying, "Both?" And he kind of just talked them and led them to his home, where he agreed to help them out with whatever they need, like cannon, but mainly for the fact that, he's already says they're on the way there. He just wants to know if Bad Ape wants to help stop the humans. So, yeah. They're where the guards this time because of the blueprints, because of the directions, and, hey, if you want to get there, if you come this way, there are two guards in the snow, walk out with your hands up and tell them who you are. Then they lead you to the camp. So, yeah. So with this, the apes plus Will and Malcolm, and Apollo and They will hide themselves first, and their horses as well, and they make Apollo approach first. Apollo has his gun over his shoulder, and he's dressed with proper winter gear with a proper insignia for the militia. And he tells them, like, hey, I'm kind of just supposed to be going to the camp. I transferred from the nearby station in the forest. Like, okay, got it, sure. Because one of them turns around to point Will in a different direction, he pulls out a 10-inch Bowie knife, shoving it into one man's just like up his armpit and then out and going across his neck. One man tries to immediately go for like his gun and try to yell, but immediately Buck would jump out, slamming his both fists down on top of him as hard as he possibly can. And they all hear a loud crunch that immediately make them aware that the man is dead. So yeah. Now, with this, Maurice able to drag both of the men into just like a nearby pile of snow, and the natural just snow covered. The snow kind of covered the tracks. The falling snow did. So yeah. Once the bodies are hidden, Malcolm and Nova were the ones to kind of just make sure that there's no other soldiers around. So yeah. But Apollo would use the direction he got from the now dead soldiers to go into the camp. And he saw an ape strung up, but pretty quickly he's able to pull out small, just a random. It's just a really just sharp piece of metal that he used as like a skinning knife. He handed it to the ape and mumbled, "I'm with Caesar." The chimp just let out a small but happy grunt before cutting himself free, and then running up to the mountain where Apollo would point him in the general direction. So with this, eventually while the group is in the mountains, while Apollo went to the camp, they're able to find a sewer system. And with a book that Malcolm has that he had from the hydro plant, he's able to point out that this sewer system is still kind of active, or it likely is. So he mentions, those who are in the back should go grab some mud, stick with the can, and stuff all the drains that they can so that water doesn't flood in while we're trying to do this. So actually spare some few hours, or even days. So, yeah. Pause. Okay. So, Caesar and Will and Maurice are able to talk and make it, and with the bit of info they have on the basis operations via Apollo using walkie-talkies that Ash snagged on his way out of the camp after killing Winter, they're able to basically make plans. Apollo relays there are indeed apes here, being Caesar's tribe. Yeah, the humans are there too, by the way. Blue Eyes look at his father after hearing that, and he actually tells his father a secret, mentioning, like, after I got Mama and Cornelius to safety, I hid behind some rocks after I hit the colonel by his men with my sword, but they weren't killed by me. Caesar's confused, like saying, like, what do you mean they weren't killed by you? You used sword slashes on them. You used that. They were dead by a sword. Well, Blue Eyes mentions all he could do was hit them to the ground, but when they got up, he couldn't bring himself to kill them, and his grandfather did that. And after that, after grandfather left, I more or less kept eavesdropping after my mother and brother were safe. And eventually, he heard the colonel talking about killing you specifically, and us if you had any kids, as he wasn't sure of you having any in general. Caesar was confused as he looked at Blue Eyes, and he's a bit confused, but Caesar eventually just kind of says, oh, you can't rely on other people to do the job for you if it gets too difficult. But Will gets Caesar's shoulder saying, I know you aren't disappointed, but just cut him some slack. Caesar just nods and puts his hand on Blue Eyes' shoulder, and tells him, like, and tries to tell him something, let's just dive to his knees immediately, holding out his hand for permission for something, but he then yells, saying, the man will stop hunting us until we're dead, until you're dead, and then us, if he finds out we exist. I'd like your permission to do what I couldn't before, to kill a human. Caesar's lessons able to teach Blue Eyes went out the window, but he would hand Blue Eyes a stone hatchet, and then rub his hand along Blue Eyes', giving him permission. And he says, use ape tools to fight, and fail to kill him. You'll win again, but you will accomplish it this time. And the hatchet is ape-made, so he wants Blue Eyes to use a hatchet or an ape tool to kill a human. So yeah. Maurice, Malcolm, Blue Eyes, or not Malcolm, Maurice, Malcolm, Bad Ape, and Luca also let's talk up the drains plug is a better term. Plug up all the drains in the sewers with dirt, mud, rocks, sticks, snow, etc. And do that so they can prolong the planting time, like I said earlier. And after that, they're able to deduce that the base enslaved the apes and people to build a wall, like they found off the other human forces they heard about a few days ago at the other human camp. And they kind of assume, the other human base is either equally well armed, if not more. So they plan to estimate how many steps it would take for Team Caesar to get to each enclosure, the ones holding the young apes and the adult apes separate, from below ground. That plan begins now. And it will use a no-name ape from earlier to get information, saying, how long would it take you to get here, so to say? As Caesar would be outside the ground, while Maurice is talking about an estimate of where the ape enclosure is. And the ape's like, I don't know how many steps, but I can tell you it takes us about, after getting the cage, it would try to take us about 15-ish seconds, if you can catch it like that. After plotting his head, Caesar can immediately point out how long it takes to get to a certain spot, and immediately begins carving out a small hole where they're able to escape into if they need to. Then pretty quickly are able to deduce that, if not, maybe about 2 steps behind would be the children's enclosure. Like, this would take 2 steps less to get to the kids' enclosure. So, yeah. After they do that, well, Caesar, after making the plan, he'd be able to conjure up a small one to create a distraction to get all the kids and apes out of there. And humans as well, of course. So Caesar would immediately send in himself, being able to crawl among a lot of the apes until he gets to where they're keeping the horses. When he does that, he immediately would unleash all of the apes, or all the horses. And with this, we would have Rocket coming from underground, guiding in all of the adults into the hole. All those soldiers are just being ran over, stumped by horses, or trying to shoot down the horses. All Bad Ape would immediately pull all the kids underground. Now, immediately once everyone realizes that all the apes are gone, and even the holes have been stocked up by just mud being thrown back out and things falling on with all the chaos going on, immediately they may have been yelling for the Colonel. But up in the Colonel's room, proud of the chaos, he was writing in a journal, presumably about plans of defense once the attackers arrive. When he heard the chaos break loose, though, he would stand up, ready to help, like putting on a vest and everything. But then he would hear a roar, and he hears Blue Eyes. He's on top of the Colonel's table, yelling, "You face me!" Colonel spun around and ready to shoot his gun, but the thing is, he cocked it as it was aimed, not while he was turning. So immediately, he gets an axe thrown into his shoulder because he was not 100% ready to fight Blue Eyes. As the hatchet is in his shoulder, Blue Eyes would run at him as he would drop the gun. But he had the hatchet at his shoulder, swinging at Blue Eyes, but Blue Eyes was hot back, using his back butt to grab the Colonel and throw him over the table. And immediately he would perform his father's signature move, a double axe handle into the head of the Colonel, making him hit his head on the level ground and bounce off a little bit. The Colonel was swinging the hatchet upward, slashing Blue Eyes' eye, giving him a very similar scar to a very traitorous ape. The Colonel stood up, but wobbling, and he immediately was kind of just a bit mad right now, as one, he's in pain, 2, he has an adrenaline rush, and 3, he's doing this to defend his family in the future. So he yells, "Be damned with ape tools, I'll finish you my way." He would tackle the Colonel into a shelf, and then throw him into the ceiling, a few times actually. And Blue Eyes ends up having an arrogant tone, saying, "Humans aren't so powerful with guns, are they? How did you ever consider yourself top of the food chain? Even us apes know we aren't there yet." Colonel would grab a sash immediately, full of magazines and other things on it. Grab a pistol that's already cocking and firing at Blue Eyes, who just dove into the Colonel's quarters and flipped his bed over to use as kind of a shield. Now, the Colonel would try to poke his head in, only have his dresser thrown at him, but immediately he heard his men yelling at him from behind the door. Immediately he poked his head around just to see if they had gotten in yet. He then would feel Blue Eyes, use his chest as a jumping platform, and Blue Eyes had jumped out the window, thinking of it as a sign of retreat, only for Blue Eyes to throw something at him. He caught it, seeing it was a pin, looked down, realizing his sash had a grenade on it. Colonel would try to merely yell, "Go away," but as soon as he opened his mouth, we just hear, boom. Colonel had been blown up, same for the men outside of his door. Now, Blue Eyes nearly escaped from the Colonel's room, but he had realized it caused a chain reaction of explosions. The Colonel's room was stuffed full of different weapons, most a lot of explosives in it, creating a mass explosion. Traveled down the hallway, and the soldiers were also carrying explosives. The main base is full of explosives, is the best way to put it, and every single explosive went off. But the wire that Blue Eyes was climbing on had been going down, but Blue Eyes was able to get to the other end, and pretty quickly escape into one of the holes made for the adult apes. The apes aren't enough. The adult apes were fighting the soldiers. And Caesar's facing down a soldier he freed nearly a week ago, a man with a crossbow. The man ready to shot, only for Caesar to jump over it and grab the arrow with one of his feet, throwing it at the man and into the man's shoulder. Caesar would just yell, saying, "I gave your people mercy, specifically to you and your friend, and this is the thank you I get." They enter crawling whale and Caesar to run at him at top speed, airing another arrow from the man's quiver and shoving it into his throat, killing him immediately. Now, another human tried firing at Caesar, only for him to hear two roars. And you would see Buck and Luca on both sides of the soldiers' bridge, charging at them with the Jersey walls. And they slam into all the humans, beating them, crushing them with the Jersey walls until they're nothing but pieces of rubble now. Buck and Luca kind of high-fived, and then they jumped down after most of the humans on the bridge were destroyed. Rocket helped get the women and children to safety until another donkey charged them. A large, red donkey. The gorilla would charge at him only for the Rocket to stare at him with a very sadistic grin, like that of a wild chimp. As soon as the gorilla got close enough, he would jump up and begin mauling his face, biting, scratching, pulling, pinching, whatever he could do, he's mauling him. Eventually Red fell, and Rocket let out a few loud roars before saying, "You're a fucking rookie." Cut off his head, pulling it off with how maimed it was. And he threw it at just another soldier who aimed a gun at him, but a giant gorilla skull hitting his head at like 20 miles an hour had knocked him clean out. So yeah. When they were done, though, the base is utterly destroyed, and an avalanche hadn't happened yet, but it was about to. When they're done, and they arrived at the oasis, when they arrive, Caesar would stand on a rock to announce his arrival, or not to announce it, but just to confirm that this is their oasis, and he had yelled, saying, "I've stood you all as your leader for a little over a decade. I take great pride in that, but I made two mistakes that in a short amount of time could have risked our tribe majorly and our new human friends." But he yelled at his son, then ended the mistake at the core, being the colonel. He had yelled, saying, "He's able to do that he's able to do all that and not disrupt our plans a single bit. In fact, he made them go by easier." He yelled, "He is young, he's powerful, and most importantly, vastly intelligent. Therefore, I announce him as a new leader of our tribe." A lot of apes were confused until Caesar would raise his blue eyes, his hand in the air, and roar, and yell, "Apes together strong," and his blue eyes began chanting it with him, and all the apes join in. Now, I'm going to go into my notes for the epilogue, being like 300 years later. Simian flu is gone in North America, like completely wiped out. Will had been able to spread it that far. But also, people are genuinely immune to the simian flu now, including variants. But also, humans and chimps began interbreeding, starting in Caesar's tribe, creating humanzees, making them pretty common along the west coast, mainly. And the apes don't really mind them, as long as they don't act like humans. As long as they can actually, act like proper apes, yet also not like be too weird. Apes don't mind them. Blue Eyes. He had 7 children before Cornelius took over, and had 20 children across, more than 20 children, across different species, mostly ape and human, but still over 20 children. North America still has conflict between humans and apes, but not much. Around 35% of it, some 35% of the time, there's conflict, but only around 20% of it is major. So, still a lot of conflict, but a lot of it is not along the west coast, which Caesar's tribe, or Blue Eyes' and Cornelius' tribe, had kind of stomped out along their coast, even along some of the borders to states bordering Canada. So, they actually kind of have control over, any state, I would say, going from California along the border to Canada, which goes through Oregon and Washington, but also just another few states at the top. They basically have control over all of that. So, yeah. They have a lot of control, but it's spread very thin. But even then, no matter how thin it is, they're like one of the more powerful ape tribes. I hope you guys enjoyed the series. Like and subscribe for more. Adios.